I was born right in the middle of the 90s, 2 years after my brother. All the memories of our childhood were kept on VHS tapes, tapes that we hadn't watched in almost 2 decades because, well, who still owns a VHS player? My brother Luke would soon turn 30, and I thought it would be a neat present to digitize all our old videos. My mom kept them inside a box in our basement, labeled 1993 to 1999 A tapes. I had no idea what the A meant until I found the others. Our old basement was filled with all sorts of both junk and memorabilia of the past years. Dusty basketballs with no air, our old inflatable pool, sneakers I could still wear if I gave them a decent clean. I got lost in there for hours, looking through all kinds of stuff until I stumbled upon the box that looked just like the first one I found, except this one was hidden under a pile of old jackets. 1993 to 1999 B tapes. At that point, I obviously had no idea what the difference between them was, and my parents weren't home, so I couldn't ask them. They'd gone on a cruise. I'd let myself in with the key I'd kept after moving out, so I brought both of them to my car. It took a week after I could pick up both boxes and a USB stick with all the videos from the shop. I watched the first few, the ones in which I wasn't even born yet, just to check if everything worked fine. Then I put the stick into an envelope with a card so our family could watch them together after Luke's birthday and after my parents got back. 2 days after the party, my brother called me. He didn't tell me what was going on, but commanded me to come over to his house as soon as possible. I'd never heard my brother sound more disturbed. What the actual fuck, Max? My brother looked even taller than he was. Anger seemed to make him grow. I was a good bit shorter than him, paler and weaker. My dark hair was curly and chaotic. His was always styled right and had the color of honey. The only similarity we had were our greenish-brownish eyes. I watched that shit with Ellie. You think that's appropriate for a 2-year-old? Can you at least let me inside before you start harassing me? I have no idea what you're talking about. He moved to the side. Their living room was a mess, with toys, clothes, and crumbles everywhere. It had been like that ever since they got Ellie. It made me like my niece even more, bringing a bit of chaos into my brother's sleek life. Are Ellie and Jacob not home? He shook his head. They went to Jacob's parents. He's pretty angry with you, he sighed. Max, be honest. Why did you make those videos? How did you even... Huh? I moved a stuffed elephant from the sofa and sat down. I brought our old VHS tapes to a place and I told you when I gave it to you? I thought you'd like to see them. Luke frowned. You look like you have no idea what I'm talking about. He got his laptop and sat down next to me. He opened a folder with 2 video files labeled Tapes A and Tapes B. Did you watch them? A few of the first ones. The A ones? I nodded. Without saying anything else, he opened file B. A video started playing. The date at the bottom said November 1994, with the description Park Time. It started off with a dark screen, I thought at first, but as it turned out, it was just night. The quality wasn't great, but you could tell there were trees, and you could hear the occasional howl of an owl. There is a similar video in the A ones. It's me. I just learned how to walk and we're in the park, having a picnic, during daytime. So what is this? I asked. Wait. Suddenly there was light. Somebody had lit a torch and shoved it into the ground. You couldn't tell who the person was because they only showed the back and it was still too dark. More torches followed, arranged in a circle. When it was done, someone came with a child that looked a lot like Luke when he was little and placed the baby in the middle of the circle. Even with the light, it still looked strange and blurry. There were voices, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. What the fuck, I whispered. I was speechless and sick. Watching these hurt my insides, and I can't explain how or why. It felt as if it was too unnatural for us to comprehend, a sort of filter that lay over it. The sounds. I wanted it to stop, but at the same time, I was too curious. Luke looked at me with a concerned look on his face. I'm gonna fast forward to one with you in it. June 1997. Birthday. This one was during the daytime in our garden, but things looked slightly different again. Colors were much brighter, almost neon. 2 boys appeared in the frame, probably Luke and me. It must have been my 3rd birthday, so Luke was 5. We were dressed in purple striped shirts and pants but could only see our backs. We were running towards something that looked like a small bouncy castle, one that I don't remember ever having. We disappeared inside of it and the camera zoomed out further and further, and then all you could hear were loud screams, but they didn't sound like they were coming from children. When the two of us came outside again, the camera was still zoomed out, but you could still see that we were laughing and jumping, and there was something red staining our clothes and hands. Blood. I ran to the bathroom and threw up my lunch. When I got back, Luke was waiting for me with a bottle of water. Happened to Ellie as well. Kept throwing up but also cried a lot. I didn't like the idea that my tiny little niece saw that, and I found it strange that she had such a strong reaction to it as well. How she understood that something was wrong, because technically nothing really bad happened in those tapes. They were just disturbing. Luke, I swear, I have no idea what that was. All I did was grab the boxes with tapes. Do you remember that birthday? He asked. Are you joking? We went back to the living room. Luke had closed the laptop. I remember your third birthday. Some of your kindergarten friends were there. Mom baked a cake. There was no bouncy castle and whatever else the hell that was. My stomach was still turning. I've watched plenty of far more gory stuff in my life. I have no idea why this affected me so much. Mom and Dad come back tomorrow. We need to talk to them, I said in a determined tone. But Luke knew me well and probably heard the fear in my voice. I'd never been scared of my parents before as far as I could remember, but I also know that they'd been slightly particular when we were growing up. My parents had always been kind of eccentric. Our house was always full of strange art, and they traveled all the time even then. They never hurt us. If anything, they neglected us a little. But I didn't remember anything scary ever happening. I can go alone. Look, Mom and Dad are a bit weird. It's probably some very strange art project of theirs. But either way, I want to know what's up with that, Luke said. No, I'll come too. Maybe they'll be angry that we found them. Max, they kept them in the basement, in an unlocked box. They wanted us to find them, or at least they didn't mind if we did. I wasn't exactly afraid of my parents, but of all the things I couldn't remember. I stayed with Luke that night. Jacob and Ellie were still with Jacob's parents. The next day, we drove to our old childhood home. Luke and I had both stayed in our hometown after moving out. His house was a 20-minute drive from my parents. I lived a bit further away from both. When we reached the driveway, I saw my parents' car and felt a cold shiver. I wasn't sure how we should do this, what we would say. As it turns out, I didn't have to. Mom opened the door before we even rang the bell. Max, Lukey, how sweet of you to stop by. She came closer to hug us, but Luke gently pushed her away. Where's Dad? The four of us need to talk. Before my mom could answer, he marched to the living room where my dad was reading a book. What the hell are the B tapes? My parents exchanged a glance. They didn't even try to act like they had no idea. Sit down, both of you, and calm down. It's nothing bad, my mom said. My dad sighed and put his book away. Then he got up. If anything, they looked annoyed that we disturbed their day. Luke and I sat next to each other on the sofa, and my parents were standing in front of us. For a moment, it felt like we were little boys again, getting in trouble for breaking something. Neither of you ever got hurt. We made them for a possibility, one that you didn't even get, my father said. Can you please talk less cryptic? I chimed in. It was the first thing I'd said. Those aren't real videos of your childhood, just remakes. For your audition tapes, they were searching for child stars. Luke didn't make the cut, and then we tried with you, Max. But neither of you was chosen. My mother took over. They? Who are they? And chosen for what? A movie? Luke asked. My parents exchanged another glance. Something like that. The filmmakers were looking for extraordinary children with specific instructions on how to show their personalities. The children that were chosen became part of this fantastic kids show, but neither of you were. Now Luke and I exchanged a look. I had all those questions. Why would you do that to children that young? Why did you never tell us about it? And why did those tapes make us sick? But the atmosphere shifted after my parents explained it to us. Mom went to the kitchen and started cooking. Dad was blabbering about their trip. They acted like what he had seen was totally normal. That was the scariest part. How normal they thought those tapes were when they could even make a 2-year-old sick. I felt like I didn't even know my own parents, and I felt strangely out of place. Meanwhile, Luke looked like he would explode any second. Finally, he shot me a look and walked outside. I followed and we drove off without saying another word to my parents. At first, neither of us were speaking. I suppose we both didn't know how to deal with the situation. After a while, Luke parked next to a McDonald's. I thought he was just getting some food, but instead, he turned to me with a serious look. "There's something you don't know. When you were sleeping last night, I watched a few more of the tapes. I mean, they made me feel terrible, but I had to know if anything, really bad happened." I swallowed and Luke took a deep breath. Then he shook his head. "There was nothing like that. The tapes are messed up, but in different ways. In ways that make you question reality." "Okay." Now he was looking straight at me. "You know how Mom said neither of us made the cut? To be cast?" I nodded. "Well, after 1996, there was a third child in the tapes. And the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to remember things. I know it sounds insane, but I'm wondering if we had another sibling that we forgot." "I'm your family, okay? That's all that matters." I nodded, but the sinking feeling inside my stomach hadn't gone away. I'd asked Luke to drop me off at home. Jacob and Ellie were coming back from Jacob's parents, and I needed some alone time. I'd taken the USB stick with me. I had a feeling Luke would obsess about it, and that wouldn't be healthy for him or his family. I, on the other hand, was single and lived alone. I had all the time and energy to go crazy. Luke put his hand on my shoulder. "I mean, I know all of this feels strange, but let's be honest. Mom and Dad have always been a little insane." He tried to smile, but I saw a twitch in his eye. He knew he was losing control, but tried his best to keep me calm. I was 28 years old and my brother still wanted to protect me. Even after moving out at only 17, he always stayed close and made sure we kept in touch. It made me wonder how much of the bad things in our childhood he hid from me. Older siblings really don't have it easy sometimes. "Luke, I'm fine," I said, "but I might take a little break from visiting Mom and Dad for a while, just to wrap my head around things. As to the third child, look, no, maximum. I think I let my imagination roll. That kid could have just been a neighbor or a friend's child." "Oh yeah, for sure. I still don't like that they used us for some weird audition like that." "Never thought Mom and Dad were fame seekers," I nervously laughed. "Yeah, same, but try not to worry about it too much, okay?" But of course I did, just like him. We were stupid. My brother was trying to protect me, and I was trying to protect him, but in reality, both of us were already too deep into the mystery, and neither of us would let go of it. As soon as I heard Luke's car drive off, I grabbed my laptop. There were two things I needed to do. First, I would start with the A tapes to see if there was another child in there with us. Second, I would watch enough of the B tapes to understand a little bit better what they were about. The first thing made me nervous. The second made me ill. As I skipped through the A tapes file, I realized something. All the memories I had of my childhood came from what was filmed back then. I suppose it's not that odd. Our brains aren't that evolved yet as kids. We mix the information we have with bits of memory and believe that we actually remember it all. It was all fairly normal. A trip to the zoo, birthday parties, school plays. I kept skipping until I reached 1996, a short fragment of Christmas, with me, Luke, my parents, some other adults, and a baby. I didn't recognize those other adults. It might have been one of their kids, but my mom was holding it. I paused the tape right there and switched to the B file to look for the same date, December 1996. Even while I was just skipping through scenes, my stomach rumbled. I still didn't understand how it was possible. A few images and sounds couldn't possibly evoke such a physical reaction. Maybe it was just my nervous system warning me about something. I tightened my fist and continued. No puking before I had some answers. 1996. Lee's first Christmas, it was set at a graveyard. It must have been evening time, somewhere in between light and dark, but the contrast kept changing, making it difficult to focus on any specifics. Then two gravestones came into the frame, but I couldn't decipher the names or dates. Although one of them seemed to say Montreux, our last name. I swallowed and kept watching. An adult I couldn't identify brought the child into the frame. Lee, I guessed. And the adult could have been my dad, although it was hard to say. He laid the baby down on the ground in front of the gravestones. All of a sudden, the light became crazy bright, almost burning my eyes. I looked away for a second, and the image had changed. What I saw now was our family: Mom, Dad, Luke, me, and Lee. We were sitting on a blue sofa, and behind us stood a red Christmas tree. It seemed as if all the colors were reversed. Luke and I kept moving and looking in all kinds of directions, but Mom, Dad, and Lee were staring right into the camera. No movement. Mom and Dad were both grinning. They almost looked proud. Then Dad's face turned serious and the video stopped. My heart was racing. There is no show or movie I could ever imagine who would want this as an audition tape, but I'd known that from the first few ones already. Somehow I still tried to find a logical explanation though, a reason why my parents were doing this. Yes, they'd been weird sometimes, but they were still my parents. I didn't want to believe that there was something utterly wrong with them or imagine the kind of horrible people they were involved with. At this point, I believed it to be some sort of satanic cult. My head joined my fast-racing heart. It felt like something would break out of my skull any second, so I closed the B file. When the Christmas video of File A opened up, I watched a little more of it. It felt ironic, but almost comforting to watch that regular-looking Christmas. Luke and I were playing with presents, the adults were drinking and laughing, and then I saw a familiar face that didn't look as happy as the rest. My grandpa. I don't know why I hadn't thought about that before. My grandparents moved away when we were really young, and not long after that my parents broke off contact with them, or the other way around. We didn't even go to my grandmother's funeral. I took a picture and sent it to Luke. He called me back an hour later, his first words being, "I found him." Who? Who do you think? Grandpa. He lives in a nursing home in a place called Watton. I thought, Luke, whoa, stop. You found Grandpa? How? I could hear him grinning through the phone. He has Facebook. I was quiet for a second. Did you text him? Number, I thought we might pay him a visit. I looked up the town he lives in. It's a 4-hour drive. I already took time off work. Maybe you could say you're sick, or I didn't even think about it. Yeah, okay, let's do it. What does Jacob think of all this? I asked the next day as we were sitting in the car. Luke didn't answer for a while. I didn't tell him everything. Said the video was a strange art project of our parents and that I'm in a fight with them about it. And about you leaving for 2 days, visiting our grandpa who we haven't seen in 2 decades. I didn't question him further. It was his relationship, not mine. And it was probably for the best if fewer people got involved in this mess. We arrived at the nursing home around noon. A friendly nurse guided us to the garden where an old man was sitting on a bench. I knew it had to be my grandfather, but it was strange to see how much he had aged, especially after I'd seen him in the video only the day before being more than 25 years younger. All of a sudden, I started getting nervous. The last time this man had seen us, we were children. He probably wouldn't even recognize us, and I didn't know how clear he still was in his head. As we approached, he looked up and smiled. "Lee!" he called as he looked at me. "No, Mr. Montreux, this is your other grandson," the nurse calmly said. "It's Luke and Max, Grandpa. Do you remember us?" His expression changed immediately. At first I thought it was anger, then disappointment, and finally sadness. Luke and I were lost for words. We had planned all the things we would say and ask during our drive, but now my mind was blank, and from the appearance so was his. Grandpa gave us a sad smile. "You boys have grown so much. Luke, you more than your brother, but still." "Which brother?" Luke asked bluntly. "Max or Lee?" Grandpa shot him a confused look. "He slips in and out. At times his mind is sharp, but often it is more foggy," the nurse explained. "Great," Luke mumbled. "I'm going to go inside and let you chat. I'm sure you missed your grandkids very much, Mr. Montreux," the nurse said in a friendly tone. "No, don't leave me alone with him," Grandpa said as he looked at Luke, who was just as confused as I was. "Do you happen to have a phone number or any other contact information from his other grandson?" I asked the nurse. She shook her head. "Unfortunately not. He brought him here a little while back, and he comes to visit at times. But it's hard to reach him." "All because of that silly show," Grandpa whispered. I got closer and sat down next to him. He didn't seem to mind me. "The show he was cast for?" I asked, gently placing my hand on his shoulder. He looked me in the eyes and nodded. I didn't know it would follow him like that back then. "I didn't know," he shouted that last part, and I instinctively removed my hand. "Mr. Montreux, all is fine. Lee is doing well," the nurse calmly spoke. "I'm sorry, boys, but I think now is not a good time for him." She helped Grandpa get up from the bench, but before he was standing, he looked at me. "Not your brother, your cousin. I raised that boy after." He didn't finish the sentence, but instead looked at the ground and sadly whispered, "Your parents should have died, not his." "So what now?" I asked when we were back in the car. Luke let out a big sigh. "We need to find Lee, who I guess is our cousin and not brother, so at least that's something. Maybe we can ask around and see if someone knows him. The town isn't that big, and he was some kind of child star, apparently." I looked through the window at the gray buildings we were passing on our way to the town center. "Did you see the look on his face when he said our parents should have died?" I asked. Luke nodded. "They were probably the reason Lee got cast. After they didn't want us, they tried with him instead. Maybe after his parents died? You don't think Dad killed one of his siblings and spouse to get their child for a TV show, do you?" I asked half-jokingly. Luke opened his mouth to speak, but closed it again. After a while, he said, "Can you text Jacob and let him know we arrived? I forgot." "Sure," I said, quickly followed by "shit." This shouldn't have made me feel so scared, but I knew something bad was about to happen. "He sent you a text 1 hour ago. Your parents just randomly stopped by. You know how much I hate when they do that." Luke's eyes opened wide. "Call him now!" he shouted. I gulped. "It's going straight to mailbox." I'm going to kill them. With the speed Luke was driving in, we'd get back home in half the time we were supposed to, but I couldn't blame him. With the most recent news, I wouldn't be surprised if my parents were already working on Ellie's audition tape. We don't know that I stopped to think over my words. This happened decades ago. I doubt whatever production company that was, it still exists today. Maybe they just wanted to stop by. "And that's why none of them are picking up their phones?" Luke hissed back. He was right. At this point, we couldn't know what my parents were capable of. We both stayed silent for a while. We were alive and healthy, and from what I sounded like, so was Lee. But I'd still evolved a fear for my parents and lost all the respect. "I remember them," Luke said all of a sudden. "Who?" "Lee's parents. Our aunt, Dad's sister, and her husband." I swallowed. Why was Luke only giving me truths in small portions? Before I could ask precisely that, he continued. "I'd forgotten. Repressed it, I guess, but I'm starting to remember their funeral now. It's strange. The only adults there were Mom, Dad, Dad's parents, and one woman I don't know." "You're trying to tell me you forgot an actual funeral until now?" I asked, fed up with being left in the dark by everyone in my family. If I had to go through this mess, I at least wanted to understand it. "Yes, Max." "Geez, I'm not trying to mess with you. I don't get it either. I was a child too when it happened. The memories are fuzzy and I forgot until Grandpa talked about it." "I had told you that I'd started remembering the third child, didn't I?" "Yes," I mumbled. At the same time, I kept trying to reach someone. Mom, Dad, Jacob. "Maybe we should call the police," I asked after a while. I don't know why I didn't think about that before. It almost felt as if the outside world and authorities didn't exist. Luke shook his head. "We don't know how unpredictable Mom and Dad are. I need to talk to them." "Yeah, okay." Luke started nervously tapping the driver's wheel. "What's the first memory that you ever had?" he asked. "Like the very first thing you ever remember?" I thought about it for a while. It's hard to say because, as I mentioned earlier, most of my memories were mixed with what I saw in the tapes, in the regular ones. "I'm not sure," I said, although I did have one very early memory that I was sure was not from the tapes. It's one of me and Luke. We were at home. It was night. Back then, we still shared a room. There was a lot of shouting coming from outside. He came over to my bed and closed my ears with his hands. But I couldn't say if it was real or if my mind had fabricated it and Luke was already on edge with everything, so I didn't tell him. Instead, I told him about something else I remembered, which I now think could have a meaning. I remember a man visiting us once. A weird man. He was dressed in purple and yellow and had a very shrill voice. Luke bit his lip, the same way he already did as a kid when we were playing board games, and he thought thoroughly about his next move. "We were wearing those same colors in that birthday video," he said. I nodded. "But it couldn't have been around the same time. You were too young in that tape." "What's your first memory?" And I asked him. "Your birth. I think I was happy." We didn't talk much for the next hour or so. We were both lost in thought. I was trying to remember as much as I could from my childhood, and I think Luke was doing the same. His expression darkened more and more the longer he was silent. I had to ask him about more of his memories, but I decided to do it later, after he got his daughter back and knew that she was safe. As we finally pulled into the driveway of our old childhood home, we discussed our game plan. We'd start normal and calm. We'd let ourselves in with my key. We wouldn't shout or cause any trouble, but act like nothing was up. Mom and Dad had no idea what we'd been up to or how much we knew. Before we could do any of that, Mom got in the way, though. She'd already opened the door as we approached with a bright smile on her face. "Boys, you're back! And just in time as well. We were just sitting down for dinner." "How are you acting this normal?" I blurted out, forgetting that we'd planned to do the same thing and that Mom hadn't been with us these past hours. She had no idea about all the disaster scenarios that were going through our heads. She answered me in the shape of an eye roll. "You're so dramatic, Max. Sometimes I really wonder why you weren't picked. Maybe if you were better..." She stopped herself by clenching her fist. "Unimportant," she continued. "Come in." Luke shoved her to the side and shot through the door. I quickly followed, leaving the door open behind me. Our home has an open design with few doors, so you can quickly skim through the kitchen and living room. There was no one around. "Where are they?" Luke shouted. "Not up here." Mom shook her head and pointed her fingers down. "Stay here," Luke said as he walked towards the basement. Mom quickly followed him, making small jumps with each step. Ignoring my brother's instructions, I went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and followed them to the basement. Of course, I had absolutely no idea what to expect down there, but at the end of the day, it was my family. And at the very least, I wouldn't leave my brother alone. They had redecorated the basement. All the boxes with stuff were shoved in one corner. In the middle of the room was a table, our old garden table probably, with an orange plastic cloth that had balloons on it. The table was set with plates, cups, and napkins, all in sets of 6. In the middle, there was a big plate with one of those huge silver covers that you sometimes see in hotels and movies, or maybe in real ones too. My dad was sitting on a small plastic chair. Mom stood next to him. "Where are they?" Luke shouted. Mom and Dad shot each other a look. "Who?" "I'm not fucking playing. Where are they?" "If you're talking about our son-in-law and our granddaughter, they went home around 10 minutes ago after Jacob helped us set everything up," my father explained calmly. Our basement consists of 2 rooms, the big one that we were standing in at that moment and a smaller one connected by a closed door. I walked towards it, but Mom got in my way. My hands went to the knife that I had hidden in my back pocket. "You're telling me Jacob helped you with... What the hell even is this?" Luke wasn't shouting anymore, but his voice had a low tremble. Even with parents like ours, family normally means safety. The situation was absurd and quite frankly frightening. It didn't feel like reality anymore. Everything seemed to happen ultra-fast and simultaneously in slow motion. "It's a surprise party. Don't act like we can't talk to our son-in-law. Jacob loves us." "No, he doesn't," Luke hissed. "And we love our little Ellie. She was playing the whole time." "Luke, honey, call him if you don't believe us." Now Luke was moving towards us, stopping dangerously close in front of Mom. "We've been trying to call him for hours," I chimed in. But at the same time, I remembered that there was never any service down in the basement. "Luke, go upstairs and try to call him." I gave him a look that meant that I was fine down here. He hesitated for a second, but then ran up. As soon as he was gone, the eyes of my parents were glued to me. Both had massive grins on their faces and then shouted, Revival time! Dad got up and led me to the table, gesturing for me to take a seat. Stop this madness now. Why are you doing this to us? My voice cracked, tears shooting to my eyes. I had finally reached the point where I just felt hurt. Mom started stroking my hair the way she used to when I was little. We didn't do anything. You did this, Max, when you couldn't perform well enough, she said. What? They didn't answer but started rearranging things on the table until we heard Luke coming down the stairs. They're both home and completely fine. First he had no service and then his battery was dead. Come on, Max, let's go. No, Mom shouted. Not yet. You wanted answers, right? And we want to have dinner with you. If you stay, we will talk, Dad added. Luke and I exchanged another look, and then, to my surprise, my brother proceeded to sit down. This was our family after all. My mother sat down, took a deep breath, and started speaking. Shortly after Luke was born, friends of ours told us about an upcoming project, a television show for children on the surface. But so much more below that, an opportunity to change everything in this world. But the project was only at the start. It would take more than a decade to evolve completely, which was perfect. We had all this time to prepare and become a part of it. The company behind it sent us instructions regularly, little clips we were supposed to film of Luke, and when Max was born of him too. But my mother stopped speaking, disappointment written on her face. Neither of you made the cut, my father continued. You didn't seem to be right enough. But then little Lee was born. We babysat him at times and took some footage. They loved him. My mother took over again. When his parents died, she said with no emotion in her voice, we were sad, of course, but also thrilled because we thought we could adopt him. But your awful grandparents took him away from us. Mom and Dad now looked at each other and smiled. In unison, they spoke, but it didn't matter. He was cast, and when the show was ready, they would find him and a way to get him on it. He was 11 when it started, and everything went perfectly. We even watched the show with you a few times. We wanted it to be you boys, but at least little Lee was family. Luke and I looked at each other, more confused than ever. Our parents had officially lost their minds. Can we talk now? I asked. Fuck it, I will, because you're not giving us real answers. You're making the situation only weirder. What's up with this creepy-ass child's birthday dinner? Why are there 6 sets of dishes? They both grinned. Because we have fantastic news, there will be a reboot. My father almost screamed. Luke's eyes shot open. You're not doing any of this shit with Ellie. Do you hear me? I'll get both of you arrested. They both shook their heads. No, she's much too young. The new show will start very soon this time, my mom said. The thing is, the show has an adult protagonist and the last one recently died. Isn't that fantastic? Luke got up and called out, I'm done. Both of you need psychiatric help. If you're ready for that, I might contemplate talking to you again. I moved up as well, following him toward the door. But then he stopped all of a sudden. Wait a second. The show, it's that Adventure Time thing, isn't it? Both my parents smiled again and nodded. Didn't Max run away after watching that? What? I asked, but before I could get an answer, we were interrupted by the sound of a loud thump coming from the room next to this one. I heard a low voice whispering, "Help! Who's in there?" I shouted. My father answered, "Our star."